and terrorism-related threats, risks, uncertainty, which affects significantly economic activity. So we closed 2015 for the first time in a very long time with a serious drop of exports of between 7 to 8%. In all the bad times, Jordan never had a drop in exports, a negative growth in exports. 2015 was very significant and telling about how the markets are shutting down around us. Iraq got shut down. You know the political reality of what happened in West Iraq. Obviously, Syria. We lost more markets in Libya and Yemen, and with all the uncertainty, obviously, around us, and the increasing cost of transportation to compensate, it made us lose market share or competitiveness to many of our exports. And it's not automatic that you compensate with new markets, unfortunately. Growth will be at around 2.4% for 2015, in spite of the great and successful completion by November of last year of the standby arrangement program with the IMF, where the IMF had forecasted confidently that we will be growing at 3.9%, and they realized themselves how more strenuous the circumstances around them have been. And we've had a drop of tourism of at least 10%, if not more, but the official numbers will come out. And we completed our national census. I think the Department of Statistics completed officially all their arrangement. They'll be announcing early next week, as far as I was told by the director of the Department of Statistics, the full results of the census. But roughly, Jordan officially has now 9.5+ million people as a population, close to 6.5 million Jordanians living in Jordan, with another probably 800,000 plus outside Jordan as expatriates, and about 3 million non-Jordanians, of which a minimum that was captured in the census, because we know a lot of people still went into hiding or didn't want to get registered because they're either illegal or whatever. A minimum of 1.3 million Syrians was documented, and out of the 3 million, roughly, non-Jordanians living on the Jordanian territory. So that's good. So we know what the scale is now after the census. We've captured it as accurately as possible. I think the coverage of the census was close to 96%. I think they had a 3% or 3.5 percentage point. Please, these are accurate numbers based on the briefing that was given to us by the Department of Statistics. But that's a very high degree of accuracy within any census anywhere in the world. You never do 100% anywhere in the world, actually. So these are the realities confronting Jordan. So we proposed a holistic approach that you all know of, 3 critical pillars: a trade and investment and an employment pillar, which has a logic to it, which is turning the refugee pressure into an economic development opportunity. And the way Jordan thought of this, with all of you and with all your help, is that how do we benefit from the Syrian presence in Jordan in a way that, rather than remaining in a crisis mode, I try to convert this into an economic development opportunity, but in a manner that is very clear and has to be said clearly and has to be written in the compact, that does not displace Jordanians and Jordanian jobs, and that actually creates value add and expands the economy. Because otherwise this will be at the expense of the local citizens. And no country in the world, no government in the world would actually do something like that if it's going to be at the expense of its own citizens, or it's its own citizens' job creation or livelihood or welfare. With that premise, we've agreed with all of you that for Jordan to scale this up appropriately, we will look at multiple layers of creating jobs. The key is to put into pilot, and we can add as many development industrial zones as we can. We decided let's start with 5 zones that have enough space, they can attract new investments, to attract new investments or expand existing, hopefully, investments that would then employ both Jordanians and Syrian refugees. And we think that's a win-win to our economy, to the Syrians, and so on. But given all this uncertainty around us, given the disruption to our trade routes, given the loss of ability to export and the need for new markets, we thought that the key pillar to making this work properly is to try to give a great incentive, given all the pressures we're absorbing, by having the European Union relax on a temporary or exceptional basis the rules of origin that Jordan has with the EU, so that we can incentivize more investments to come in, to take advantage of this incentive, and hopefully Europe, which is affected the most by the migration crisis after the neighboring countries to Syria, can make a bold statement to say, I'm giving an incentive at the source for a country like Jordan that would hopefully incentivize pushing in investments that will help create positive impact to Jordanians, as well as open the door for Syrian refugees to work in these new investments. That wasn't our only offering as Jordan. We also decided to look at other avenues to create economic opportunities to refugees. One is to start opening up the sectors that traditionally have imported labor and give priority to Syrian refugees. This is something that we already took a decision to freeze importing new labor into Jordan for 6 months, and we've been directing the private sector to start looking at take priority from the excess labor that exists in Jordan, and that specifically is the Syrian refugees. We think that's good because these refugees are living here anyway. Let them find these jobs. These are jobs in sectors like agriculture, restaurants, construction, and things like that, where we tend to import some labor in many of these categories. The third layer of opening up these refugee flows and creating economic opportunities for them is to look at how do we use the refugees in the public work/construction projects that donors will fund and provide grants to against the Jordan Response Plan in the areas of investments in infrastructure for host communities. Because these would have tended to bring non-Jordanian labor in the first place, maybe with some Jordanian labor. But the non-Jordanian labor, the top priority or preference should be given to Syrian refugees. We think that also scales up quickly. And the last, and these are, projects like Germany is planning to fund under the Jordan Response Plan, under the host community component, where if they build a school or do a healthcare clinic, they will work with the contractors who are doing this, that they give priority for workers to come from the Syrian refugee community, in addition to Jordanians, and hopefully try to the maximum block any other nationality to come into this that is non-Jordanian, so that we give priority and preference to the Syrian refugees. And the last layer for us to help create the economic opportunities was to look at a way and legalize a lot of the Syrians who are working illegally in the informal sector, to the extent that we actually balance this very carefully with the total job creation that's happening for Jordanians. But the government made a commitment to open up all of this. This is not an incremental commitment. This is transformational. This is big. This can open the potential for 150, 200,000 over several years of refugees, Syrian, to benefit from this. So please understand that when we offer this, there's a huge political risk in us offering this, and in return to be let down by the international community. And February 4th will be the test. We've offered, I think, something that's very bold. There is something that reflects the Jordanian values that you're all accounted to over the many decades of how Jordan has dealt with limited resources, always with waves of refugees that have come across its country. And I'm counting that the international community will make a serious commitment in response to this Jordanian offering to the international community. And as the ambassador had said, this is truly a win-win-win because it's a win for the refugees. It gives them dignity and hope. With that, we've added an educational component, as you know, to add students and things like that. Madam Ambassador, I have to be also careful to say that the way I add double shifts has to be very clear, that I add double shifts in a way that does not deteriorate the quality to Jordanian students. And please understand that you have to be more sensitive than us on these points. So if you want more seats, don't just count on double schools, but also think within the JRP that we've asked you for more schools to be built up. And I think we have to balance this, not just run only simply double schools, but as we run double shifts, don't neglect the part of building more schools if we need to, that could then leave real assets to the country for the future and helps with the local communities and helps with our host communities. And I very much would recommend that as government and Ministry of Education, they should stop adding Syrians to existing classrooms with Jordanians and go to a double shift, keep classes similar in size, and not allow the education to deteriorate badly for Jordanian boys and girls as we absorb additional Jordanian boys, Syrian boys and girls on top of the 150,000 that are already going to our public schools.